Happy Father's Day to all our dads out there. We have a special blessing for you at the end of Mass. We've arrived at Corpus Christi Sunday, the most holy solemnity of the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ, which follows after Pentecost, and then the church gently sets us down on our particular Sundays in ordinary time. So we have these two solemnities over the last 2 weeks, Most Holy Trinity, and now the Feast of the Body and Blood of our Lord. And I didn't bother going and looking at current polls on how many Catholics believe that Jesus Christ is truly present in the Eucharist. I mean, I have in the past, and it's very discouraging when they poll these people and they say, oh, it's merely a symbol. And no, it isn't. No, it isn't. He's truly present, body, blood, soul, and divinity in the most holy sacrament, in the most holy sacrament of the altar, as we hear in the gospel today. How can this man give us his flesh to eat? And more is revealed as the Lord goes to the cross and he has the Last Supper. And he says, take this, all of you. This is my body. This is my blood. And then the church spent centuries and still is pondering this, unraveling, what does this mean? And we came up with words like transubstantiation, that the substance of the bread and wine are changed into what makes Jesus Jesus. And only the appearances of bread and wine remain afterwards. And we, Christians, are the only ones that believe this kind of thing. What a privilege, what an honor to be able to receive the Lord. And we should receive properly. If we understood what we're receiving, we should receive properly. We shouldn't be in the state of mortal sin. We should try to go to confession whenever the Lord prompts us or when we know we've fallen into serious sin. To be prepared to receive this treasure. St. Paul says in 2 Corinthians, we receive this earthen treasure, or we receive this treasure in earthen vessels. We receive this treasure. Now, how much more, how much more focused would we be receiving the Lord if we understood that to the very core of our being? That this time of the year is when I do a little bit of a housekeeping homily on how to receive the Lord properly when we come forward, right? Of course, we don't want to be in a state of serious sin. How much more would we be willing to receive in a way that's focused if we were receiving gold? This is a note made of pure 24-karat gold. I guarantee you, if I was handing these out on your hand, if you wanted to receive it that way, you would be very focused. You wouldn't be, whatever, hand it to me, Father. No way. Man, this is pure gold. Somebody gave this to me a couple days ago. Pure gold. I don't know how they roll it this thin and make it in the form of a bill. It's 1/4 of a gram of pure 24-karat gold. And the church fathers said, how would we receive if we were receiving pure gold? And if we were receiving pure gold, we wouldn't be haphazardly receiving it. And the church fathers say what we receive is far more precious than gold or titanium or platinum. But we see it again and again. And now some people, I think they just get in a habit. They're not being disrespectful. They're not being uncharitable. They're just not, either they haven't been admonished or they haven't been properly schooled or they just fell into bad habits. But we'll go over to receiving on the hand. First of all, we've made a change here and we keep announcing it, that if you receive on the hand, we want you to consume right then and there in front of the minister or the extraordinary minister before stepping aside. Just like the folks who receive on the tongue would consume. Right then and there. Because the problem is, oftentimes, and we hate to see this, people walk off with the Holy Eucharist. I was over at a nearby parish celebrating Mass this week, and it was a child, and so there probably maybe wasn't a lot of instruction, but this child received the host and started walking off, and the tracking array goes on, and one of the others said, no, you need to consume. You don't bring it back to your pew. I had a guy in the last parish where I served, he broke one half and he put one in his pocket and consumed the other. And we had to admonish this person. Most likely it wasn't for unholy reasons, probably bringing the Eucharist to somebody at home. But we have a procedure and a way to do that, right? Because what about all those crumbs that go into the pocket? Does that just go into the washer? No, we want to be really focused, right? Receiving on the hand, right? So a lot of folks, they come up and they do what's called the boat, like this. Now that isn't, the church prescribes that one hand is on top of the other, and there's a throne formed for the Lord in the shape of a cross, right? Not the boat. When people come up with the boat, I don't know which hand to put it on. It's very confusing. No, that's not the proper posture. One-handed? No, we don't receive on one hand. I know that people have children in their arms and sometimes canes. And really, if that's the case, I think you should receive on the tongue, right? Instead of the one-handed gesture. I had a girl in the parish where I worked in Chicago as a deacon. Still makes me bristle to this day. She came up and it was just like, I am too cool for this. And she just stood there kind of sideways to receive the host. And it's like, back then, I wanted to clobber her. But back then, I wasn't brave enough to say anything. I think I've gotten a little more courageous now to where, no, this isn't the way to receive. One of the things that drives me crazy, and if you do this, I will go straight to the mouth. If you come with the pinchers are the people that the host is presented and they pinch it out of the hand of the minister or extraordinary minister. Absolutely drives me crazy. That is not a dignified way to receive the Lord. And the church, even in the early days, says, do not do this. So if you come at me with the pinchers, I go up and over right into the mouth. Don't do the pinchers. And then there's folks that receive on the hand, and I understand efficiency. I mean, I used to work in the business world, and they'll receive on the hand, but then they'll do kind of a pincher modification to where on the hand, and then they pinch and put in. No, that's not also not, I know you don't mean any disrespect, but it's not a dignified way. No, we receive on the hand, and then with the other hand, we place the Eucharist in our mouth and consume. We don't just go in, it's just on the hand. It's a very complicated process if we let it become that. No, on the hand, form of a cross, opposite hand, receive right then and there in front of the extraordinary minister, and return to your place where you were before and pray, right? We've just received this treasure in an earthen vessel, right? More precious than gold. And then on the tongue. Now, I texted one of my priest friends, won't say his name, but he had a list. I said, what was the list? The lizard, the slide, the cavern, and the biter. So this happens, maybe unconsciously, most likely unconsciously. You're distributing Holy Communion, you place it on the tongue, and whatever reason the person licks your finger. That's the lizard, right? I'd really discourage you from doing that. The cavern, right, and I see this, and it's more frequent than I would like. And people just open their mouth and they don't put out their tongue at all. And it's not easy to place the Eucharist in its proper place. No, the tongue comes out. just a little bit beyond the lips. It doesn't come way out. That's the slide. It comes way out here. And sometimes I see the slide and the mouth isn't open, and you're like, how's the blessed Lord going to get back in there? So be conscious of this. You don't have to open up a huge amount, but enough to draw the Lord back into your mouth. The biter, I haven't had this very often. I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Thornbirds, but Richard Chamberlain, there was a biter in his congregation, but she was biting his finger for improper to send a message to the priest. Don't do that. Don't do that. I might punch you if you bite me. Right? So we want to receive on the tongue properly. There's also, I call it the ninja, right? Somebody, the body of Christ, they open their mouth, they put out the tongue, but then it's the head is bowed. And you're like, and this happened. It happened, I remember, with Cardinal George when I was in the seminary. One of my seminarian friends was bowing his head when Cardinal George put the Eucharist on his tongue and it fell to the floor. And so, yeah, we don't want that to happen. But plus, it's almost like the ninja. It's like you're hiding. It's like, there it is. No, it's gone. And then another form of the ninja is somebody, and this happens, somebody opens their mouth, puts out their tongue, and then turns the head. And you're like, well, wait, what's over there? No, keep focused, right? Keep focused. We want to receive properly. And you hear me say this every year, right? We want to brush and floss before we receive. And many of us, we need to start scraping the tongue, right? The tongue scraper. See your dentist, right? Because, I mean, it's funny, right? But we're making a Eucharistic throne. We're making a Eucharistic throne. So if you were going out on a date with a beautiful person, how attentive would you be to your oral hygiene? I think you would be very attentive. We're receiving this treasure in this earthen vessel. That's why when kids come up and they've marked their hands with ink and so forth, it's hard to put the host on their hand because it's like, well, I think you need to try a little harder to scrub that off, and making a proper throne. Now, there are people that work with their hands, and I was one of them. You can scrub and scrub and scrub, and it's only going to get so clean. I understand that, but when we seem to not care, there's times when kids, maybe even adults, have their sleeves over their hands like this, and they want to receive. It's like, no, pull the sleeve back. I don't want to put the Eucharist on your clothes. I want to put it on your hand. So you have that moment of adoration before you consume. Friends, we have a treasure more precious than gold that the Lord invites us to take into this earthen vessel. Let us endeavor to receive properly and with focus.